Hey everybody, it's Scott Steen with winnersandwhiners.com coming to you with the Thursday edition of Today in Sports Betting. As always, I am joined by my partner from Long Island, New York, the one and only Scott Reichel. Scott, good morning. How are you?
Doing pretty well. Pretty interesting day in sports yesterday.
Pretty crazy 24 hours as we have seen the Milwaukee Bucks. In case everybody needs to get caught up, the Milwaukee Bucks voted to boycott their game yesterday against Orlando.
Well, it was interesting because Milwaukee boycotted, Orlando showed up, and then Orlando ended up leaving the court. So I guess they ended up boycotting too, I guess.
Yeah, I had first thought they were going to forfeit, when I first saw the reports that Orlando had showed up and Milwaukee hadn't. I had first thought that they were going to forfeit that game, but that wasn't the case at all as Orlando joined the boycott. And then the boycott was joined by the rest of the teams, and nobody played yesterday. So now the question:
well, nobody in the NBA played. There were some baseball teams. I know the Brewers ended up following the move of the Bucks, and they didn't play either. I know that the San Francisco Giants also didn't play. You had a couple of games that got canceled. Then the NHL showed up and was just like, NBC Sports, did we tell you that we're going to have some coverage real quick? And I was watching hockey pretty much all night last night.
So just a quick recap for those of you that have tried to stay out of the political thing and stuck to sports. On, I believe, Sunday, right? It was a 29-year-old Jacob Blake was shot 7 times in the back by Kenosha, Wisconsin police as he was being detained in a traffic stop, reaching inside of his car where his kids were, and basically it's a bad look. Now there's a lot of circumstances going on about whether there was a knife, a gun, et cetera, but it certainly it doesn't look good on videos, and the players reacted very strongly and basically took a step that they felt that they had to take. Now, late last night, Scott, you and I were talking before the show, the Lakers and the Clippers took an informal poll, and they both, the majority of people, did not want to continue the season. Now, the Lakers apparently have been up talking as a team all night long, and they've reached a little bit of a different conclusion. They are willing to go on with the season. Now, having said all that, we don't know what's going to happen with today's games. It looks like, it's kind of a tough situation for us because there's a league meeting and a players meeting that's basically going on at the same time that we're doing our show, which is 11 a.m. Eastern time. So at this point, we don't know that the games are going to go on. We suspect in our heart of hearts, based on what we've seen so far, that these games will not be played. However,
at least today. I think
at least today. Right.
I think there's a chance they can resume tomorrow. But in my opinion, I don't think Thursday really has a chance. But they still have betting lines up. So
right. And that's kind of our thing. That's the decision that we have made. As long as there's lines, and we have today in sports betting, we're going to talk about what's going on today in sports betting. So without further ado, let's talk a little basketball, Scott, because eventually these games will be played most likely. So start with our old favorite here, Scott, the Utah Jazz and the Denver Nuggets. Utah is favored by 2 in this one, and Utah is up 3-2 as Denver showed a little bit of a pulse in the last game. Learned how to play a little defense. Scott, does that defense carry over into this game, or does Utah shut them down today?
For me, I actually like Denver in this spot. I said after they came back in Game 5 that I thought the series would go 7, and I'm sticking with that opinion. I think that Denver definitely at least showed signs of massive progress defensively in the second half. The only issue Denver has is that in order to be competitive, they basically need Jamal Murray to score 40 points, which isn't exactly ideal for being a consistent competitor in the series.
Right.
But a part of me feels like Utah had a golden opportunity and they squandered it. And I think that Denver has a lot of momentum building after that comeback, and I think Denver's alive. So I'm going to lean to Denver here.
Yeah, and this is a situation that would be very different if it was being played outside of the bubble. But this is the time where you would actually Denver was this is the time where you'd go back to Denver. Denver would have a little bit of momentum and
the altitude advantage as well.
And the altitude advantage, right? Of course, as we've talked before, the altitude advantage tends to diminish as the series goes on. So if you're playing 3 games, it's probably not going to be as noticeable in the third game as would be the first game. But when you go to that first game up in Denver, especially after playing basically at sea level there at Salt Lake City, it makes a difference. It makes a difference for sure. But that's not the case. They're playing in Orlando, and there's no home field advantage, home court advantage to speak of. They do play the recordings and the crowd noise as if it is actually a home game. So I suspect, Scott, it sounds better to us than it does to them. I think it sounds more like real basketball on TV than it does in person. Would you agree with that?
Probably. I think in reality, the players are so used to the crowd atmosphere that it feels like they're just in a different world right now, which as fans, at the end of the day, if you really didn't want the atmosphere or anything, you could just mute the television. So it's a lot easier to actually, kind of mimic that experience we have now. For players, you can't really mute a crowd. So for that reason, I definitely think it is a unique situation for the players. And that doesn't surprise me as to why some players have struggled in the environment. I know that Paul George talked about the mental aspects and how it had a negative impact. And I wouldn't be surprised to hear more players potentially either come forward in the future or that are dealing with it and want to keep to themselves. But I definitely think Paul George is not alone when he says that he has had trouble adjusting either mentally or physically.
Sure. And I think a lot of these guys are very social, very public creatures, and they're used to having a lot of friends and maybe a little bit of an entourage even. And yeah, I think it's a heck of an adjustment where they're just kind of on their own with their own thoughts there. A goodly portion of the day. 2 points for the Jazz. So you're a Denver fan here.
I'm leaning Denver. I can't say I'm a Denver fan because that defense is still tough to trust, but I do think after that comeback in Game 5, I like their chances in Game 6. And I mean, I feel like you kind of have to lean to the over again, right?
Yeah, the line is set. They kind of meets the happy medium there. They've set it at 220.5. They tried it at 221.5 last time. That didn't fly. Went down to 219.5. It is now seems to be pretty stationary at 220.5.
I'll lean Denver and over, but it's a pretty tough game to cap.
Oh, you take Denver on the money line at plus 110.
I think Denver's going to win, so kind of, but I think I'd rather just take the +2 because you get some push draws in there, and it's only 20 cents. No, it's only 20 cents. So I'd rather just sell the 20 cents, get the extra 2 points of the push draw.
Well, it's actually
not even 2 points; it's 3 points technically because you have the money line as opposed to pushing. So
it's actually
3 points.
And it is actually only 15 cents because it is shaded towards Utah at -2. Denver right now +2 is -105. So,
well, technically, money line's the equivalent of half a point. So for that reason, you're looking at it going, yeah, I'd sacrifice that.
Okay.
What do you think?
I'd be tempted to play Denver straight up. Although I'd be a lot more tempted if it was 20 cents instead of 15 cents.
Yeah.
So I'd probably just take the points there at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're on the same.
I'm probably more a fan of the total. This is a trend.
Yeah, it's been a high scoring series
that we've seen. Yeah, and it's hard to fade. It's hard to fade the total, the over in this one for me. The Celtics Raptors. This is where it begins. Where they kind of start to eat their own. We've got 2 very good teams. You and I talked off air yesterday about whether we thought the 4 teams that were going to ultimately be there in the East were better than any team in the West. And, that would have been laughable coming into this. But these are 2 teams that play some pretty good basketball, Scott. It's a shame. It's a shame that one of them has to lose. The Raptors -2 right here. 216 is the number. Your feelings on this one?
I'm going to lean to the Raptors. A couple reasons why I feel that way. First of all, even though the Celtics were able to destroy the 76ers, which I had money on, so I was genuinely not surprised that they ended up winning in 4. I thought they'd win in 5, but same thing. I thought that they were going to kill them. I do think that even though they were able to beat the 76ers, who are massively dysfunctional, and ended up firing their coach as a result, probably, 2-3 years overdue, but they got away with not having Gordon Hayward. And I don't think they can get away with that as easily against one of the deepest teams in the league. And when you're talking about switching up minutes and trying to get a decent rotation, I think Toronto is the deepest team in the league. And Boston losing a double-digit scorer who can contribute and is also a veteran who kind of makes smart plays. I don't know if you can really trust him in the fourth quarter of games because he has a little bit of a clutch factor issue, but he's still a good scorer. I think that's going to hurt. And I think that Toronto definitely has the ability to get either Tatum or Brown or any of these other guys into foul trouble. And I think Boston's depth is a potential concern, especially when you're going to be giving more minutes to Grant Williams and Brad Wanamaker. I think Wanamaker is just a bad player. I think Grant Williams is okay. He's not an offensive scorer by any means. But I think Boston lacks a little bit of offensive firepower off the bench or even just from the supporting cast with Gordon Hayward not there. So I'm going to link to Toronto.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I am slightly troubled. Kyle Lowry is on the injury report for today with an ankle. He's questionable. I think he probably plays. I don't know if he's 100%. Does that bother you at all?
It's definitely not ideal. I think Lowry's one of those guys who is a multi-purpose point guard. Some people are score first and they'll only do this and whatever. Then you look at Kyle Lowry and you realize, oh, he'll go for like 12 points, 7 rebounds, 10 assists. And that's kind of a pretty solid, well-rounded score line. So or stat line, I should say. So, yeah, I love him as a point guard. He's very good. I think he will play. The question is how effective he will be. But that's the beauty of Toronto's bench, is that even if he's not able to go, I know Lowry's a very valuable guy. Do you think Toronto's bench can step up as a unit to at least, I'd say, compensate for his inability to play? And I think the answer is yes, because I think you'll agree with me. Toronto probably is the best bench in the entire league.
Yeah, I would say this. I would say I like Toronto without Lowry better than I like Boston without Hayward. How about that?
I think it's very close. I would probably disagree with you because I think a lot more highly of Kyle Lowry than I do of Gordon Hayward.
No, I agree. I think they're able to cover the loss better.
Yeah, I think
I'm not saying the quality of the player. No, I agree. Lowry's a better player.
I think in this series matchup, I agree with you. I think that in the grand scheme of trying to win a title, I think that Lowry means more to the Raptors because Lowry is still an all-star point guard who's still potentially a future Hall of Famer. So I think long-term, I think that the Raptors need him, of course, to win the title. But for this series, I agree with you because I think that Kemba, who did look very solid against Philadelphia, you still have to wonder how well his knee's going to hold up moving forward. You also have to wonder about the bench.
Yeah.
And the bench, you have Wanamaker, who I don't think should be in the NBA. So I'm sure a lot of Celtics fans will share that sentiment because a lot of Celtics fans don't like Wanamaker either, and I can understand why. So from a coaching perspective, it's the best coach series you're going to get in the postseason with Stevens and Nurse going at it. That's a phenomenal chess match if you're into coaching.
Yeah, I would agree.
I expect that series to be close. I have the Raptors in 7. That was my thought going into the playoffs, and I'm sticking to it. So I'll lean Raptors game 1. Now, you can say, well, the Celtics dominated in the regular season, yada, yada, yada. And the answer is, well, yeah, but Siakam didn't play in half of those meetings. So I don't know how much weight those meetings hold. And Siakam is arguably Toronto's best player. So I think that definitely matters. I'm going to lean to the Raptors, though. And if I really had to lean to a total, I'll lean to the under because I think this game could turn very defensive in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, this is a Boston defense that for all their flaws, they do play very good defense. They gave up more than 107 points just once over their last 8 games.
Now that's good defense, but it also doesn't help that Philadelphia's offense is a disaster.
Well, true, very very true, and that's certainly part of it. However, they did play this very same Toronto team in the bubble and gave up 100 points. So
yeah, they also won by like 30.
Yeah, they won by 22 in that one.
Yeah.
So, it's certainly Boston has the ability and has the confidence to play with this team. I'm with you. I think it's going to be Toronto. I think it could even be Toronto in 6, but if you want to go 7, I don't hate that. I do like them here.
Would it surprise me if Boston wins the series? Of course not. I think that this series is pretty even. I just like the depth that Toronto possesses in comparison to Boston.
Yeah, very good team playing very good basketball right now is the Raptors. They look like a team that wants to be champion again, and I think Boston just
I think the main issue I have with Boston is that I know Tatum's a very great offensive player. I know Brown is a little bit streaky, but he tends to be a very good offensive player. And I know that Kemba, when healthy, is Kemba. But besides those 3 guys, do you really have anybody else who can do much offensively?
Right, and that's the question. We've talked about that extensively. when it comes to this Boston team is their lack of depth.
No, they're very top heavy, and Cantor can perform offensively, but he's one of the worst defensive big men in the league, so you can't play him in half the series that you're in. And I don't know where else the scoring to come from. Where Toronto has eight guys who can score double digits in any given game.
Yeah.
And you can talk about like Norman Powell off the bench. You got a lot of pieces there that can contribute. Ibaka off the bench as well. You have a lot of deep foul trouble can play a huge factor for Boston. I think Toronto can deal with it.
Well, and I think obviously I think Ibaka would be starting for a lot of teams, obviously.
Correct, but he's still coming off the bench, so
that helps
the bench mob.
That is something that they've got.
It's a luxury that a lot of teams don't have.
Yeah, they've got 6 guys that average in double figures for the season,
and I'm assuming Boston is 3, or well 4 including Hayward. But since Hayward's not around, I'm assuming that it's 3 for Boston. Maybe Marcus Smart averages 10, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I mean, even if Marcus Smart does, I don't think he's the kind of guy that you want taking double-digit shots in a game. At least if you're a Boston fan, I don't think you want Smart taking double-digit shots.
That is not ideal. I guarantee you that's not where they want to be. Let me see here. Boston has they do have 5 guys that average in double figures.
Really?
Marcus Smart averages 12.9 points.
Okay, so Smart and Hayward, and then
and then obviously one of those is Hayward, and then of course Brown, Walker, and Tatum all average 20.
Yeah, of course.
So, all right, so yeah, we'll go with Toronto there and lean under. I think you and I are.
Wouldn't surprise me if Boston wins. Once again, the lack of home court should make every single game in that series extremely unpredictable. Because right. I think either team could win any game, which sounds obvious in any playoff series, but not always. You can kind of get a gauge on this team will have a bounce back, this team will do whatever. I think both teams are so well coached that I'm not really sure how any game will play out. But for the sake of this, I'll lean to Toronto.
I'm with you. And then the nightcap here between the Clippers and the Mavs. Clippers minus 10, 238 is the total.
I'm assuming that Porzingis is not going to play, especially after comments from Rick Carlisle yesterday.
I know that Dallas on the morning line, their injury report looks like the walking wounded. Basically, everybody is on it.
Well, Doncic I know is questionable, but of course Doncic is going to play. That's not really a discussion.
According
to Coach Rick Carlisle, he said yesterday when they asked him about Porzingis, he said, quote, "I'm less optimistic than I want to be," which is definitely not the quote you want to hear from a head coach right before an elimination game.
Right.
With regard to the health of his second best player. I think it really comes down to Paul George, and it looks like Paul George might have figured some stuff out, and the Clippers, I think, are still scoring from 2 days ago. So I'm going to lean to the Clippers on that one. Am I thrilled with minus 10? No. I think I'll have to lean to the over, or the Clippers team total over, because Dallas can't stop anybody right now. Right. So that'd be where I'd lean. But I got to assume the Clippers are going to wrap it up, right?
Yeah, I would like to know the extent, because like I said, there's 4 starters that appear on the injury report for the Dallas Mavs. Trey Burke, Doncic, Finney-Smith, and Porzingis are all questionable for this game.
I know Trey Burke isn't exactly the big name. I know that people know him from Michigan in college because he won Player of the Year. But he has been a journeyman in his NBA career. But he's been very good for Dallas in this series. That's a very underrated loss if he's unable to go.
Yeah, he's absolutely an integral.
He's a high-energy guy.
Yes, absolutely. And especially it takes some pressure off of Doncic, because that's, as we've talked about, it often comes down to your not your top 5, but your 6, 7, and 8 players.
Especially against the Clippers, who have some bench scorers as well. I know that Morris took some cheap shots at Doncic where he might have stepped on his injured ankle, and there was a lot of, motive. They're kind of viewing it like the damn JFK assassination. They're just looking at it from 40 different angles, trying to determine what motive was. I assume it was on purpose because the ball was 10 feet out of bounds and Morris stepped on the foot that just so happened to be the injured foot of Doncic. But either or, Doncic isn't at 100%. Morris didn't get suspended. And I think that the Mavericks, assuming Doncic isn't anywhere near 100%, which we can agree that he probably is not, they don't have the depth at all to match up with the Clippers, and they can't guard anybody. So I think that this is a really bad spot for Dallas.
Well, the Morris thing just goes to show you can take the player out of KU, but you can't take the KU out of the player. That's the way that works. So,
well, I'm sure Bill Self would want to make some comments about that. But yes.
I would imagine Bill Self is trying to keep himself out of prison right now, so I don't think he's.
Well, the NCAA is too busy going after LSU right now. That's a separate story.
All right, I'm with you. I think this is a Dallas team that is.
Props to them for making the run. I'm not going to officially write them off because Dallas has burned me in the series a couple of times.
That's right.
But at the end of the day, after such a dominant showing from the Clippers in Game 5, they can play arguably half as well as they did in Game 5, and they're still probably good enough to win this game.
Yeah, I don't know if they're good enough to cover, but
correct. But I think the series is going to be a wrap if they play. Once again, the Lakers said this morning that they want to play. I haven't heard any updates from the Clippers organization, so I don't even know if they want to play. But assuming that they do and that all the other teams want to and they're just going to cave, then I think that they should take care of business in this game.
I agree. I think Dallas had a nice run. I think they are officially out of gas.
They need another guy.
What's that?
They need another guy. They need another guy, which is possible because Doncic is still getting paid on a relative rookie salary. So they have room for a max spot. And Porzingis, I know, of course, who has had injury issues his entire career, if he would have played, definitely would have made the series more competitive in potentially Game 5. I still think they would have lost because they would have given up 140 instead of 154. So I don't think they would have won. But they need another guy who can actually create their own shot. And they just have one or two guys right now. I think Porzingis is like a half because he can shoot over anybody, but he's not really a guy who's going to dribble on the block and do anything. He's mostly a three-point shooter at this point.
No, I think they
need another guy. They need another guy who can handle the ball, who can actually create his own shot. And as of right now, they have Doncic and Trey Burke, and Trey Burke shouldn't really count as an example that I'm talking about. They need another guy. I think you'll agree with me on that.
Well, it certainly would. I think to put them where they want to be, into the stratosphere, into the elite.
Yes, if they want to hypothetically contend for a Western Conference Finals appearance.
Right. Yeah, I think they're plenty good enough to be a perennial playoff team right now.
Well, the issue is that they're a 7 seed right now, or when they came into the playoffs, and you have Golden State, who's going to be somewhat back to full strength next year, and they're obviously going to be a playoff team, assuming they stay healthy. You have Phoenix, who's potentially on the rise. Dallas is going to.
I like how you did that.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, Phoenix is rising.
Yes, Phoenix is rising.
Nice.
But breaking news: Phoenix is rising. But yes, I feel like Dallas, who kind of low key barely made the playoffs in a Western Conference that was missing some pieces there, and with the Warriors, I think they're going to need that boost moving forward. And I think you can agree with me that with the cap flexibility because of Doncic's current deal, they're going to need to pounce on somebody, and the lack of an income tax in Texas definitely helps their chances of getting somebody.
Yeah, the old no state tax certainly makes a difference when you're making 7 figures.
Yes. So
no question about it. All right, so I think they cover the 10. I don't think that number. I'm not scared of that number. I'm really not.
I don't know. You think that the Clippers cover or Dallas covers?
I think Dallas. I think Clippers cover.
I agree. That's why I wasn't sure what team you were talking about. That's why I had to make sure.
I think that series is over. I think it was over after the last game. So.
I think it was over when Porzingis announced, as I thought that he would announce he wasn't going to play in Game 5, and I'm like, all right, cool, you're about to get destroyed, and they got destroyed.
We've counted Dallas out before.
I have, but I feel like the Clippers had one of those moments when they blew the 21-point lead, and then Doncic hit the game winner, where they basically just decided it's gut check time. Like, all right, stop messing around, let's kick some ass, and we'll move on. And then the Clippers executed that game plan in Game 5. I think you'll agree with me. That's basically what happened.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I think. The Clippers finally came out and played the kind of game they're capable of, and when
they played it for 48 minutes, they didn't take the foot off the gas.
When the Clippers are playing at the best of their ability, Dallas really doesn't have a shot.
Even the game that Dallas won with Doncic, they were down 21, and you could tell the Clippers just decided to kick it into neutral, and they got beaten after that. But the Clippers just decided if we play 48 minutes of basketball the way we want to play, this team doesn't belong in the same gym.
Yep.
And that's exactly what they proved.
All right. So I think you and I are pretty much in agreement here.
Yeah, we're in agreement on pretty much all 3 games.
Well, we're in a disagreement on the first game. I like the Jazz. I
thought you were on the Nuggets.
No, I'm not.
I thought you said that you liked the points because you didn't want to take the money line.
If I was going to play the Nuggets. I don't.
Okay.
I think the Jazz. I think the Jazz.
That's where. Okay, so that's where the mix-up was. I thought you were taking.
Right. No. I'm just talking about from a mathematical standpoint. If I was going to play it.
Okay, we both lean to the over on there as well.
Yep.
We went. So I think we agree for the most part on the games, and we also agree that we don't think there's going to be any games played today, but they might be played tomorrow. So we'll see.
Correct. I think we're handicapping wind at this point, but
yeah.
We'll see. We both like the Raptors and the under in that one, and the Clippers and lean over.
I lean to the Clippers team total over if I was really going anywhere.
Yeah, I'm with you there. What do you got? We get
it's going to be high.
It's going to be 124 is what that should be.
They could easily score 130, so I'd still lean over.
Yeah, I think 124 for the Clippers is and I wouldn't hate you. I wouldn't hate you if you wanted to put those together, because I think the Clippers have a much less chance of covering if they don't score 124.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's you're kind of free rolling there, putting those two together. Yep. So, all right, guys, there you have it. A unique edition of Today in Sports Betting, but we try to again we bring you everything that's going on today in sports betting, and usually it's sports betting, but sometimes it's social issues that bleed over and affect sports betting. So that's what we're talking about today. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll have all the updates and everything going forward and see what happens. And, good Lord willing and creek don't rise, we'll be back tomorrow to talk a little Today in Sports Betting, hopefully the NBA version. So if you're digging it, stay tuned. We're going to do our baseball show. And spoiler alert, there's about 106 doubleheaders today. So that should be fun. But for myself, for Scott Reichel, for all of us over here at Winners and Winers, and by the way, I know you know this already, but you should definitely stop by and check out winnersandwiners.com for full game previews and predictions on every game going on in America and not going on in America every single day. All right? You guys take care. Have a great day. Appreciate you watching. Hope you hit them all today. Stay well, stay healthy. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.